system admins, or there is another person who is also has this capability of editing this record. That is nothing but the current assigned approver can also edit that record during an approval process. Let's say if I'm submitting a record to my manager, now my manager is the person who is reviewing that record and he is the approver for that record. Now what we can say here is, what Salesforce is trying to say in the second option is, the person who is going to approve that record will also have the capabilities to approve that record or change the record before approving it. It is just like providing an edit access or an access to change that record information that has been submitted for approval. Alright, who gets that access? The person who is being the approver for that record has that access to edit that record, plus your system admin. That is in your second option. In case if you want to restrict it to only system admins, that is where you can select the first option here. Right? That is your third step. If I click on next, so this section talks about selecting the notification template. It talks about selecting the notification template, where you can basically select the template that you want to use to notify your manager. Alright. So this is the template. This is the template or a notification that you can generate from the system, where you can alert the approver on a pending request that is there at his end. Alright. So what you can do is, in case if you don't have a proper template that you can use, you can click on this create a new email template, which is similar to searching a classic email template in your setup menu. Alright. It is just like creating a classic email template from your search menu. In case if you don't have that, Salesforce is providing a simpler link rather than searching here. If you click on this link, it takes you to the page where we have actually created a template. Alright. So if you don't have a template, you can go to that particular email template creation process, get that template done, come back here and utilize that template that we have created. Right. In case if you don't, if you have already have a template that you can use, all you need to do is click on this lookup icon, search for the template that we have. Currently I'm reusing the template that we have created for the case emails. Alright, case email alert, priority email alert. I'm just using that template here. Alright, it might not make sense here. The idea is to let you know that we can use a template that we have created. Right, that is your step 4. So it is just that we have used the template for alerting the approver in this entire process. Here the approver is nothing but the manager of the person who is submitting that record for an approval process. He will be getting this email alert stating that there is a pending approval at his end. Alright, that is your step. I'll click on next here. Right. So far what we have discussed is already covered in a REST-based class. That is why I've gone through the steps without asking any question. Alright. So now is the place where you need to pay some attention. Alright. So this is something that we have not discussed as a part of yesterday's class. What exactly it is alright. So in this step 5, what it is saying is select the fields to display on your approval page layout. So what it is asking is, once you submit a record for approval process, so what would be the approver page would look like, right? How would the approver see that page is what you can configure here, right? So once you submit a record for an approval process, let's say if you have submitted record for me, so if I open that record, how it should be looking like? How do you want the page to be look like is what you can configure here, right? So I'm just opening an example that has been provided by Salesforce, right? I'm just clicking on the link that has been provided here, which says click here to view an example. That is where this a kind of a screenshot came up. All right, let me do it once again. All right, so this is the place where the screenshot opens up. Alright, it's just a kind of a link that is provided by Salesforce, where upon clicking it, this is how it looks like. Alright, so this first section that you see are the list of fields that would be visible to your end user. Alright, so what it says is, first position or the section which has been marked as 1 is the place where you can choose any fields from the records to appear on this page. If you ask me where exactly we can configure that, this is the first section where you can configure the number of fields or the list of fields that you want to show to your approver. Right? In our case, it's a manager. Right? In case if it is confusing, whenever I'm calling an approver, you can always think that it is a manager that I'm referring to. Right? You can take that as a reference. Right? Now, to a manager, if he has to approve a record, what are the main things that he has to look at? He has to look at the amount field. Right? That basically gives him an understanding of how much of a worth that product is. And second thing he'll look at is maybe he'll look at the work order. So in order to understand what exactly is happening on the work order, in case if he needs to look at the previous data or the issue that the end user is facing, that information will be on your work order. All right. I'm just adding some more fields to make sure that we are seeing all the fields or not. All right. I'm just adding few more fields on this screen. Right. In case if you don't want to add certain fields, you can always remove them. Right? So I'm just adding 4 fields as a layout that I want to show, or the list of fields that I want to show. Right? That is your first section, where you can configure the list of fields that you want to show to your approver. It is nothing but in that step 5, where you can basically add the fields according to your need. Right? So that is your first section. And what is the second section? Second section says comments before approving or rejecting. Right? If you ask your manager to basically give his feedback, and if you are not basically providing him an option to enter his feedback, he or she will not be able to communicate something to the person who has submitted for the record. If a person A is submitting a record to a manager N, alright, A will submit that record, but the manager has only one option where he has either whether he can approve that record or he can reject that record. If it is an approval, no one wants to know what is the reason behind approval. Right? If it is rejected, A, at least as a person who has submitted the record for approval process, he should have an understanding why that record is being rejected, so that he can correct that information and submit that record again. Right? For that reason, Salesforce is providing an option as a kind of providing a text box as an option for the manager or the approver to enter his feedback according to his findings. Alright, he or she will basically enter the reason for rejection, or he or she will basically enter the reason for approval depending on their findings. Right? So once done, they will be having this approval or rejected button. If it is an approval, they'll click on this approve button. If it's a rejection, they'll click on rejection button. Alright, so that is your second step. And this third step is nothing but your approval history. Approval history is nothing but it basically talks about whether the record has been actually approved or not. It gives you the status of the approval process. Alright, those are the things that we need to configure in our step 5 and 6. Right, we have configured the part of displaying the fields that we want to show to the manager. That is your step 5. And if I scroll down, what it says is display approval history information in addition to the fields selected above. In case if you want to display the approval history, you can check this checkbox, right? And there is a security setting that we have here which says, can a manager approve this record from a Salesforce application? If yes, you can select the first option, which is recommended option. In case if you want to give the manager an ability to basically approve this record from a mobile device or a device, anything that is not from a Salesforce, that is where you can select the second option. Alright, always go with the recommended options that are given by Salesforce. That is where I'm selecting the first option. Alright, so in the step 5, we have a fields that we can configure to display to the approver. And second thing is, it is basically asking us to add this approval history. Right, if you want to display the approval history. And third one is security setting, where you decide from where an approver can approve or reject this record. Right, that is all the settings that we have on the step 5. Right, I'll click on next here. On the sixth step, what exactly we have here is we are talking about this particular configuration which says who will be my initial submitters. Alright, so what that means is specify which users are allowed to submit that initial request for approval. It says this is the place where you can configure who can actually submit that record for approval process. Alright, so we have a list of options that we have. You can basically decide this user. Alright, this user can submit that record. Alright, in case if you don't want to go with that, you can always go with the owner of that field, owner of that record, which is nothing but the owner of a work order. The reason why it is showing it as work order owner, even though we are dealing with a work detail, is because my work order and work detail are connected by a master detail relationship. Right? So these two objects are connected by a master detail relationship. That is why my behavior of my child depends on my parent. Alright. So just by having that understanding, my owner will also be dependent on my parent owner. So that is why I'm seeing the work order owner here. Right? Your owner of your child will be similar to the owner of your parent as well. Right? So that is why I'm selecting this option in case if you want to decide a owner can submit that record, or else if you think that there is a public group or something which can look at the list of records and they can submit for an approval, you can always add them here. Depending on your requirement, you can select the person who can actually submit that record for an approval process. Alright. Now, so there is a button, there is a section which says page layout setting. There is a section which says on step 6 where it says page layout setting. What exactly this page layout setting talks about? So far we were discussing that there would be a person who will be submitting that record, but we are not sure how he or she can submit a record for an approval. Alright, so that can be done by having a button called submit for approval button. Right, that can be done by clicking on this button called submit for approval button. Alright, always you can add this button as soon as you create your approval process, so that you don't have to go to your page layouts and add that button. Alright, now, so I'll check this checkbox. This basically adds a submit for approval button on the page layout where a user can click on it, and that is where a record will be submitted for approval. Alright, like for time being, this is the place where you can check that checkbox, which would basically add the submit for approval button onto the object where we are setting up this approval process. Right, so that is this setting. Right. So there is another section which says submission setting. Right, there is a submission setting. Right, so this is nothing but a setting which talks about whether a approval request can be recalled. In case if I have submitted something, and if I have to recall that record that is been submitted for approval, that is where you can enable that setting here. But usually will not give that access to the person, right? So he or she who is submitting that record as per our requirement can reach out to the admin for any data correction, or he can always reach out to the person to whom they have submitted that record, asking them for correction on the record that they have submitted for approval process. Alright, so that is why I'm not checking this checkbox. If you have any requirement where a user can recall that one, you can always check this checkbox. Right, now, so if I click on save, that is where we'll be completing the process of this section. Right, all the 6 steps has basically completed the process of, or the 6 steps that we have gone through helped us complete this section which says process definition detail. Right, all the 6 steps that we have gone through is helping us set up this section that we have discussed. Right, process definition detail. Right, now what system is asking is, if I go back to the screen that we are using to set up our approval process, so it is asking or letting us know what would you like to do now. It is asking me what would you like to do now. And it is saying that you have just created an approval process. However, you cannot activate this process until unless you define at least one approval step. It is saying that I cannot activate this approval process that I am setting up without having at least one approval step. That means it is saying that without one step here, at least one step here, I cannot activate the approval process that I am going to create now. Right? So that is why it is asking, would you like to do that now? Right? So you are given 3 different options here. In case if you want to continue with that one, you'll go ahead with the first option. In case if you want to do it later, you can go ahead with the second and third option. Right? So now I want to set up that approval process so that we can go ahead further in this discussion. In case if you don't want to do it now, you can always select this second or third option, and it will take you to that approval detail page for the second option. take me to the listing of an approval process for this object. In case if you want to review the list of approval process on this object, you'll go ahead with the third option. Alright, so these options are nothing but keeping your approval process on hold and going back and looking at the existing approval process, or if you want to basically look at the approval detail page, it is nothing but this page that we'll be going to look at without having these details. Right. So what I'll do is I'll ask the system to continue this process because I don't want to stop here, because I've already started that approval process and I want to complete that. Right. So that is where I'm clicking on go here. Yes, I want to create an approval step. Right now. So what is this approval step? It is nothing but we are giving a condition. We are basically setting a condition which decides whether a record needs to be approved or not. Right. So that is the condition I am setting up here. So what I'll write here is I'll say amount greater than 50k. This time I'll put it as harvest. Right. So what I'm doing here is I'm giving a name to my approval process. So what exactly it will do? It is basically giving a system a condition which decides whether it needs to kick in an auto approval process or whether it needs to send that request to a manager. Right? That is what we are dealing with here. Right? The item that we are going to configure is nothing but giving the system the condition which it can basically use to decide whether it's an auto approval process that it needs to do. Anything less than 50k is an auto approved record. Anything above 50k, that is where your manager needs to pitch in and approve that record. And that is what the setting that I'm doing here. Right? So if you want to add any extra information, always feel free to add that in your description. For now, I'm just copy pasting the name here so that it doesn't look like a blank field. Right? I'm clicking on next here. Right. So where can you set up the condition that we are discussing? So that condition can be set up in your step 2 in your approval step. Alright. Earlier steps was to configure your first section. The first 6 steps that we have discussed is to set up this section. Now what we are trying to do, the step-by-step process that we are going to do is to basically set up your approval steps. Right. So in the step 2 of your approval step creation, there is a step 2 which says specify the step criteria. Specify the step criteria. If you want all the records to be processed, that is where you can select this option. In case if you want to select this option where you want to specify criteria, that is where you can select the second option and you can say the condition that you want to set, or you can always configure the condition that you want to set. What is the condition that I want to set? I want to set a value. If it is greater than 50k, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? A value which is greater than 50k, I want it to be sent to my manager, else it can be auto approved, right? So that is my requirement. In case if I want to reject anything, any value which is less than 50k, if I want to reject it, I can select this rejected record. You are given an option where you can decide whether it can be auto approved or whether it can be auto rejected. Any value which is less than 50k, if you want to reject that record, that is where you can select this option which says reject that record. Right? For time being, I don't want to reject that record. The reason being, as per my requirement, any value less than 50k, it should be auto approved. Any value greater than 50k, that is where it has to go to my manager for approval. Anything less than 50k should be auto approved. Anything greater than 50k, that is where it should go to my manager for approval process. Right? Now, so this is the condition that I've set. I'll click on next here. Right? So I've set up the condition. Now what system is asking? Automatically assign using the user field selected earlier. It is asking me who should be the approver. Now I have told the system that yes, anything less than 50k, do an auto approval process. The second thing that it is asking me right now is, if it is greater than 50k, to whom should I send this approval process? Select the assigned approver. So I'm just going with the option that I have selected earlier, which is nothing but my manager. Right? I'm selecting that of now, and I'm clicking on save. And I'm clicking on save. Now, so what has been completed is, this section that I'm highlighting currently, has been completed. This section that I'm highlighting currently has been completed. Now if I go back to that screen, now if I have told the system that what should happen if a record has been approved. So I have told the system when to approve a record, or when to basically send that record for a manual approval process, which is nothing but sending a record to your manager. Right? That is what I've told the system. Now, what is the thing that the system is asking me now is, it is asking me again the same question, what would you like to do now, right? And it is saying that you have created an approval step. Earlier it was saying that you have created an approval process, and it was asking me to set up an approval step. This time it is asking me, or it is still letting me know that I have already set up an approval step. It is asking me, you can optionally specify the workflow rule actions to occur when an approval or a rejection of this step happens. Right? It is asking me, do you want to configure this approval actions or your rejection actions? Whenever a record is being approved or rejected, do you want to act on that record, and do you want to do any workflow rule actions? Right? As a part of my requirement, what I wanted is, I want to update the work order field, which is nothing but approval status. Right? If you remember, we were discussing about one field called approval status, right, which had the status as submitted, approved, rejected, right? Submitted, approved, and rejected, right? There are like some other pick list values that I've added as a part of a discussion, some other discussion. I've not removed them, but you can always create one more field to indicate that, right? I'm just using this field to let you know we can do one field update once a record has been updated, right? So what I'll be doing is, I'll be updating this field as approved in case if that record has been approved. If the record is being rejected, that is where I'll update it as rejected. I'll be using this field to indicate the status of my work detail approval process, right? So for that reason, I'm setting up this approval steps. Right? Approval steps is that I want to set up the workflow rule actions whenever a record is being approved or rejected. Right? So what I'll be doing, in order to update a field, I'll be selecting a field update. In case if you want to send an email alert, you can select an email alert as well. Right? Now, so I'll go ahead with the approval action first, and then I'll come back and create a rejection step. Right? So what I'm doing currently is this section. It says approval action, where I want to update that field. Right? So that is where I'm selecting this field update. I'm selecting this field update, and I'm clicking on go. Right? So now the system is asking me, what is that field that I want to update? Right? What is that field that I want to update? And I'm just giving a name as approval status to approved, right? Or else I'll put it as update approval process status to approved if the record is being actually approved by the system, approved by the manager, right? So that is where I want to let the field updated to approved status. So that is what the name that I've given. It is similar to the workflow rule field update that we have created, right? So once you have given a name to your approval, once you have given a name to your action, that is where you need to define which field that you want to update, right? I'm selecting this approval status because this is the field that I want to update once a record is being approved. So I'll be selecting this value as approved. So if my record is being updated to approved, that is where this field update would be triggered by the system, and it would set this approval status field to approved, right? So that is why I'm clicking on save, right? So now if you see, we have completed this section. This section is completed. As an initial submission section, it is locking that record in case if you want to do some additional operations, like saying that, let's say you can put the field update to, let's say I'll put the field update for an initial submission as submitted. What I'll say, update the approval status to submitted as soon as I submit that record for approval process, right? So if you want to do anything as soon as the record is been submitted, you can always do that in that section, right? It is similar to the setting up a field update in your workflow rule action. So what I'll say a record is been submitted is what I'll update the status, right? As soon as a record is been submitted, the first thing that system would do is lock that record. Second thing it would do is it would update the status of that approval status to submitted, right? Now, it would check for certain things. That is nothing but if the record value is greater than 50K, if the record value is greater than 50K, that is where I'm asking the system to send it to a manager, else do an auto approve is what I'm telling the system. Once a record has been approved and an action would be fired that would set this approval status to approved. Alright, if there is a rejection, I also want to update that field to rejected. I want to make use of that field as my indicator to indicate what is the status of my approval process. So if it is approved, I'm updating that field to approved. If I want to let the user know that it has been rejected, I can do a rejection as well. I can do a rejection action as well. So how to set this up? Click on this add new. If you want to send an email alert, you can always configure that email alert. In case if you want to do a field update, click on this field update. Do this process again, just like how we did for approval process. I'm just changing the name to rejected, and I'll say August. So I'm just making sure that all the names that I'm giving are unique, so that we don't get any errors. Right? I'm just selecting this approval status. So since it's a rejection process that we are setting up, since we are setting up a rejection process or a rejection action, I'll update this approval status to rejected, and I'll click on save. Right? So if you ask me, what we have done so far is we have set up the approval process with the basic condition saying that what all records needs to be entered, and post that we have alerted the manager of the person who is submitting this record with an email alert, and we have told the system like who can submit those records, and once a record has been submitted for approval, we are locking that record, and post that we are updating the status of the approval status as submitted. And once a record has been submitted, a manager will be looking at that record. If the value is greater than 50K, if it is less than 50K, it will be auto approved. No manager involvement is needed. If it is auto approved, or if the manager is updating it to approved, that is where I'm updating a field to approved status. In case if the manager is rejecting with some reason, I'm setting the status of my approval process to rejected. Right? So that is what I'm doing as a part of this approval process. Right? So this is nothing but the final approval actions. If your approval process is completed, that is where if you want to keep that record locked, you can do it by clicking on edit and setting it to lock the record from being edited, and click on save. If you want to basically unlock that record once a record has been rejected, that is where you can select this final rejection action and click on edit, and you can always unlock that record. And you also have an option to lock that record even though if it is rejected. Right? You can decide as per your requirement whether you want to lock that record or unlock that record. For as a part of our discussion and as a part of my requirement, I want to unlock that record so that the user can basically make some changes on that record and submit that record for another approval process. So that is why I'm keeping it as unlocked. Right? Now, so we have completed the process of setting up our approval process. Only thing that is pending is activating your approval process. How to activate your approval process? It is similar to the one that we have discussed in our workflow rules. That is nothing but clicking on this button which says activate. Right? If I click on this activate button, it says activating this approval process. You cannot add or remove an approval steps. Also an approval process. Some approval process attributes will not be editable. Do you want to continue? See this, what it is asking. Right? If you want to still make some changes, do not activate it. Right? Click on cancel and make some changes and come back here and update it. Right? In case if you want to make some changes, always you can clone this approval process and start making changes on the latest one. Right? You cannot make changes on the existing activated approval process. Right? So we have our approval process activated. Now we'll quickly go ahead and see how to basically submit a record for an approval process. For that reason, what I'm doing is I'm going to this work detail tab, because I have set up my approval process on this work detail object. That is why I'm going to this work detail record and I'm clicking on new So I'll enter some basic information that is needed. Right? I'll just tag it to some other work order here, and I'll enter the value as let's say 60,000, which is greater than 50. And I'm not setting this approval status, and I'm clicking on save. I'm clicking on save. Right? As soon as my record is been saved, you'll see this edit, delete and clone button, which we have already seen in our previous classes, and there is a new button that has been added which says submit for approval. submit for approval. If you remember the step 5 in our discussion of the process of setting up your process definition detail, that is where you will be understanding that there is a checkbox, that is, or maybe in step 6, where there is an option that is given to us by Salesforce where you can check that checkbox which would enable this button on this page here, right? So if you check that checkbox, you will have this submit for approval button, right? Once you have a proper approval process set up in the system, right? So how can you submit a record for an approval process? This person can submit this record by clicking on this approval for, by clicking on this button which says submit for approval. Right? Can all the users do this activity? That setting will be controlled by this initial submitters. Right? So why am I able to submit this record for approval? One thing is I'm a user who is being given access to submit that record because my user is here. Second thing is I'm also the owner of this record. Since I'm only the person who is using this, or I'm the person who has created this record and I am the owner of this record as well. So that is where I am given the access to submit this record. And plus, I am also a user inside this public key. Right? If you have any one of the items that are matching with your initial submitters, that is where you'll have an option to submit this record for upload process. Right? Having an understanding that I can, as a person, submit a record for approval process. So what I'll be doing is I'll be clicking on this button which says submit for approval, right? Submit for approval, right? What it says, once you submit this record for an approval process, you might not be able to edit this or recall it from the approval process depending on your setting continue, right? So depending on my setting, what is that setting? I have not allowed the user to recall this approval request. So that is where Salesforce is throwing me a kind of a warning which says once you submit this record for approval process, you might not be able to edit it or recall it from the approval process depending on your settings. Right? It is asking me, do you want me to continue? So I'll say yes, I want to continue is what I'll say. Right? Before I do that, I just wanted to show you one thing. Right? So far we were discussing about this record will go to my manager and manager would have the capability to approve it. But did I tell you where exactly I can check who is my manager? I have not told you that. Right? I'll quickly show you that and then we can go ahead and submit this record for approval process. Right? Now, how can you check your manager? Always you can search for your users. And if you open your record, user record, and if you scroll down, there would be a field called manager somewhere here, right? If you don't find it, yeah. Right? So there is a field in your user record where you can update your manager field, right? So this is an indication, or this is a place where you can decide who would be the manager of a user. Who would be the manager of your user, right? So who would be the manager of a user can be determined by going to your user record or any user record. If you want to identify who is the manager for a given user, you can go to that record, search for the manager field, and that is where you will be able to see the manager field, which is again a lookup to a user, The CEO is also a user record, right? This is CEO is also a user record where you will be able to see the details here, right? So now we got to know who is the manager, right? So as a part of this discussion, what I'll be doing is I'll be playing the role of a submitter and the person who is submitting a record for approval process, and I'll also play the manager role where I'll be approving that record as well, right? So for now, I know that the Sandeep, the user that I'm using, has a manager as CEO, right? So for now, I've logged in as Sandeep, or a person who is submitting that record. I'm playing the role of a submitter of a record. So what I'll do, I click on this submit for approval button. What I'm doing, I'm submitting this record for approval process. I click on this button and I click on OK this time. Right? As soon as I did that, what you can see, this approval status is being updated to submitted here. From where this configuration is coming, if you ask me from where exactly this configuration is coming, we have to go to our approval process, right? So this is the field update that I've done, right? So what it says, as soon as your initial record is been submitted for approval process, I'm asking the system to lock that record from editing. I'm asking the system to lock that record from editing. If you see, I can see a lock button here. I can see a lock button here. That itself says that this record has been locked for any changes. I cannot go ahead and make these changes like I usually used to do for my other records. I cannot do it now. The reason being it is locked. And if you see, there is a new button that came up which says unlock record. Which says unlock this record. If you ask me why exactly I'm getting this unlock record button here is, if you go to your approval process, there is one setting which says record editability. Who can edit that record once a record has been submitted for approval process? You have told the system that only system admins can do that. Only system admins can do that activities what you have told the system, right? So that is why you can see a unlock record button here. What it does is, it allows me to edit that record. If you ask me why exactly I am seeing that, being an person who is submitting that record, why am I seeing this unlock record button is, since I am the system admin for this org, so that is why I am seeing this unlock record button as well, right? So if you are submitting a record for approval process, as per your approval process, we are locking that record and we are updating this approval status to submit it. But I'm also seeing this unlock record button, the reason being I'm a system admin here. Right? So if I scroll down, so there is an approval history that we have seen which says approval request submitted by this person, and it is pending with whom? It is pending with the CEO, right? It is pending with the CEO, and the overall status is still pending. I'm waiting for my manager to look at my request, and I am expecting him to submit that record. I am expecting him to basically review that record and provide his updates or findings, so that he or she can basically approve or reject that record. Right? So that is pending from my manager. Right? Now what I'll be doing is I'll be playing the role of my manager. So for that, what I'm doing is I'm searching for the users and I'm logging as my manager. I'm logging in as my manager. Right? So how can you do that? Being a system admin, you have the capability of doing it. Right? Now, so where can my manager will get to know the records that are pending for his approval? Currently, I'm logged in as my manager. So I can go back to the home tab. I can go back to my home tab. This is the place where managers can look at if there are any pending items at their end. All right. You can click on your home tab, scroll down, and these are the items that are pending for his approval. Right? As a manager, these are the pending items from my end, right? Items to approve. Right? So what I can do is I can open this record. Right? If I go to that record, I'll be able to see these values. Or else, if I decide to approve or reject, this is the screen that you see. Right? If I want to go to that record, I can directly go to that record and see what exactly I have. It is similar to the one that we see on this record, right? The usual record. But if you want to get to know the configuration that we did in step 5, where we have decided only few fields are the fields that I want to display to my manager. So that screen comes up once you click on this. Once you click on the approve/reject button. Right? If you want to see that screen, you can click on this approve/reject button. Right? Kind of a link. Right? So here you'll be seeing that first step that you have configured, where you'll be seeing all the list of fields that you have configured. And as a manager, since I'm playing the role of a manager as of now, I can approve or reject depending on my findings. I can look into this data and see if everything is fine. Then I can say approved as, I can put a comment as, I can pass a comment as approved, and I can click on this approve button. In case if I want to reject it, I can click on this reject button. Alright. So since everything is looking fine for me, I'll go ahead and approve this record by clicking on this approve button. Alright. Now pay attention to what would happen to this overall status, and we'll go back to the normal user that I have, and we'll see how it is been reflected for him as well. Right? For now, I'm clicking on this approved button. Right? If you see, the overall status has been changed to approved, and the approval status is also been updated to approved here, right? So now what I'll do, I'll log out of this manager. Reason being, my manager has completed the activities that is been assigned to him. I'll log in as my user, as a person who has submitted that record. I'll go ahead and see that record that is been pending for approval. If you see, the same thing has been reflected for him as well. Right? The same thing has been reflected for him as well. Right? So currently the status is approved. Right? The overall status is right. In case if you want to see if it is auto approving or not, in case if you want to test out the feature where if you enter any value less than 20k, less than 50k, whether the system is auto populating or not, if you want to test that functionality, we can do that as well. Right? I'll just enter the value as 20k and I'll click on save. Right? Now the record is been saved. Now I want to submit this record for approval. Right? I'll click on this button which says submit for approval. Right? So if you see, there is no pending activity from my manager. There is no pending activity from my manager. Since I've configured the system in a way that if the value is less than 50k, I'm asking the system to automatically update that. Right? So that is where it is submitted and it is also approved. That is where it is also approved. Right? That is where it is automatically updated. Alright, so that is all we have for this approval process. Right? Approval process is mainly meant for submitting a record for approval process. One more announcement: in case if you are turning on the videos, which is not needed as of now, make sure that you are not making others uncomfortable. Right? Feel free to check your videos and turn it on off. Right? Awesome. Alright, your approval process are mainly meant for getting an additional approval from your certain set of people. Right? In our case, in our scenario, we have raised a request to our managers where he or she has basically approved that record depending on our needs. Right? So that is all about your approval process. In short, it is nothing but setting up a kind of a request and an approval process in our real-time scenarios in Salesforce. Right? So it can be extended to your sales reps where they want to give a discount. Right? If they want to sell a product for a price where you want your manager to review it, that is where you can create an approval process. Anything that you want to get an approval, you can always use your approval process in Salesforce to get that done. Right? So that is all about your approval process. To summarize today's class, what we have done is we have basically set up the process that we have discussed yesterday, which is nothing but an approval process. The scenario is if the amount is less than 50k, I want the system to auto approve it. In case if it is value greater than 50k, that is where I want my manager to review that record and approve it or reject it depending on his findings. Right? That is what we have discussed as a part of our discussion. Right? Having said that, I'll open up the session for Q&A if you have anything. In case if you don't have anything, we can call it a day for today. right. I don't see any questions coming in. I hope everyone have understood this concept. Feel free to try this out and let me know if you have any questions in tomorrow's class. Right. Thanks everyone for joining. We'll connect tomorrow.